Hey guys, recently I did an overview video of my new Cobra firing system, and I had a really good response from that video, and I actually received numerous private messages as well as comments to that video asking for more specific information on both the remote and the module. And so I decided to go ahead and do a series of videos to cover some of the additional features, talk about the various firing modes that you have, and then also talk about the process around uploading scripts to the 18R2. Before I get into this, first and foremost, what I wanted to tell all you is, obviously I've only had the system for about a month. I'm doing a lot of research and some great resources out there. Cobra Firing Systems website and or YouTube channel. Scott has done a deep dive on the entire system, talks about the various functionality, the scenarios. He sets up multiple modules out to simulate a field, and then he gets into a lot of the technical aspects of the system. So the first thing I want to cover is the type of information you obtain from both the 18R2 and the 18M when you start both systems up. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the 18R2, and I want you to pay close attention to this display right here. When you first turn it on, the first thing you're going to see is a software version. And you see 2.10. Then P6, that's the power of your batteries, or the battery level. This 00 is the amount of scripts that you have loaded on the actual remote. And then it comes up to the channel and what channel it's on, which right now we're on channel 1. This down here, which I'll cover later, is actually used for auto firing, and this is the time sequence that you could set between each cue when it goes to fire. So that's some of the basic information you get right at startup on the 18R2. So next up, we'll go to the actual field module, and I'm going to do the same thing. Pay close attention to this display here. When I first turn it on, you're going to see a software version. And then you're going to see A14. I'll explain what that is later. Then it goes through and checks both batteries. There's the one P7, which that's the battery for the overall brains of the system. And then you saw 2P9, which that's the two batteries that are used for firing the cues. It goes through a test sequence, and then it comes up to channel 1. And you can change that setting. So that's some of the basic information you get when you first start the system up. And like I said, I'll explain some of that a little bit more later. As you can see, the next thing I want to cover is the backlight feature, the daytime mode, and what button you use to actually change that setting on both 18R2 and 18M field module. So on the remote, as you can see, these buttons are illuminated. And this is for nighttime mode, which is great when you're firing your show. In this particular nighttime setting is adjustable, and it's programmable. And how you actually adjust this display and make it dimmer or brighter is using the light button, which is here on the lower right hand side. And all you need to do to adjust that is you push the button down, you hold it, and you'll see in a minute it'll cycle through and you can see it's getting dimmer. And the nice thing about the 18R2, the remote, is it is programmable. So once you get it to the setting that you want, you simply leave it there, and then you shut the remote off, and then when you turn it back on, it remembers that setting. So once you get a comfort level for how bright you want to have this backlit, you leave it there and it will always save that setting. So I'll demonstrate that by turning this back on, and you saw when it first came up how bright it was. And when I bring it up again, you're going to see it save that last setting that I put it at in memory. See, it's a little bit dimmer. So the other feature you have is a daytime mode. So if you're getting ready for your show, you're prepping for your show, you're checking continuity, you're doing other types of tests from the remote, and it's in the daytime and there's a bright sun, these two displays, are not as bright when you're in the nighttime mode. So to actually change it to daytime mode, you simply push the light button once, and you can see these areas pop. The screens are much brighter. Even down here, this is brighter, and when you, if you had continuity, you'd see that this area is actually a lot brighter as well. So that's the daytime mode and how you change it on the remote. Now, as far as the field module, it works with the same principle. As far as changing the setting, as you can see, we're in nighttime mode, and to switch that, you use the light button that's on the lower right on the field module, and you simply push it and hold it down, and you'll see that it's going to cycle through and get dimmer. You can see how much dimmer that is, and then to make it bright again, you push it down and you hold it, and you can see that's probably the brightest setting. And then similar to the remote, if you're going to be using this in daytime mode and you're checking your continuity at the module itself, you simply just hit the light button and you can see that information is brighter. So that's the functionality of the daytime mode, the nighttime mode, how you change those settings and adjust it using the button. And then on the 18R2, it actually will store that information after you get it to the setting that you want, and it remembers that and stores it in memory. The next area I want to cover with you is showing you a new piece of information that they've added to the field module. And I'm going to power this back on. I want you to pay close attention to, after I turn it on in the startup mode, you're going to see first the software version, and then the next piece of information is the one that they added, and that's the unique address that's assigned. And the way you'll notice it is it's going to start with the letter A followed by a number, and that is a unique identifier for each module, and that is set up, like I said, once you initially sync them. So if you have multiple modules synced to one remote, each one of those modules are going to be assigned its own unique address. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that by putting it in test mode. You can see right here A14. So that A14 is a unique address that was assigned to this module when I synced it with the remote. And where that address comes into play, like I said, is giving you as the operator more visibility around the status of that actual module. So to demonstrate some of that information that you can obtain using that address, I'm going to go ahead and power on the remote, and it's going to go through its initial startup and test sequences, and then it's up. I'm going to put both these in the daytime mode just so you can see some of this information a little clearer. So the first example I'm going to show you is, so how you test signal strength, I showed you in a previous video, is you simply will hit the sync button, and the sync button will show you that -12, and then you see this address. And I don't have multiple modules, but if I did, what you would do is you would simply hit the sync button several times, and you'd get probably several different types of reading. And like I said, it will show you the reading for the specific address. So if you were to cycle through by pushing the sync button all the various modules and you see the readings, and if you saw a reading that was not within 0 to -75, you would simply then release on that value. So like I said, you're cycling through it, you get your number, and then 09. So I let go and it says A14. So that's telling me that this module, A14, has a signal strength of -9. The next example I'm going to show where that comes into play is, I'm going to do a scenario. The scenario is, I've set up the module, I've tested continuity, it's ready to go. But I'm going to be doing the show later, so I'm going to be spending time with my guests, but I want to go ahead and arm this so it's ready to go, and it'll go in the sleep mode that I discussed in a previous video. So for the sake of this demonstration, even though you know that I have it in test mode, let's assume that I thought I put it in ARM. Go to start my show. So I start up my remote, at startup, it shows number 1. That's telling me the amount of modules that are in the field. So I have 1 field module. And then I'm ready to fire the show. So to do that, as you're aware, it defaults in a test mode for safety reasons, which I think is a great feature. But to arm the system, I'm going to go ahead and push the arm button. So it's in the process of arming, and then you see this 0. And then you see A14. What do you guess that is telling me? Well, what's that telling me is I have a module out in the field that is not in the arm position, and it actually tells me which one. It says 0 and then A14, and it will, as it pulses and pulls back and forth, it's going to continue to show that information. So you know, it's going to pretty much be in your face, and it's going to continue to tell you that until you go address the problem. So that's a great feature that if you had, say, 5 or 6 of these modules out in the field, and we all know we forget to do things, or we have people help us setting up our show and they don't know the system as well, chances are, you know, you might have a problem. Someone could forget to put a system in the arm mode. And so this actually tells you which module is not in the correct position. So to further demonstrate that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back in a test mode, and then I'm going to go out and turn that module to arm now, and then you can see it's started up. They're communicating back and forth. It told me I had 1 module in the field. Now I'm going to turn it to arm, and I want you to pay close attention to that screen. So right now it's going out, it's sending the signal, and now it shows 1. So that's telling me I'm in the arm mode, and it's all 1 module in the field that was in the arm position. The other item where this could come into play is if you had low battery on your module. Now I don't have that to simulate for you, but if the battery level was between, say, 0 and 3, it actually will signal back to the remote until it has a low battery. And the same principle would work. It would show the address followed by the battery level. So it would let you know as an operator that you have a module out in the field that the battery's low. So like I said, that's great power at your fingertips as an operator, so you can actually address problems in the field prior to getting ready to fire your show. I have hooked up some consumer igniters to the module, and so this next section is going to be about testing of continuity and how you do it from both the module and the remote. So we'll start with the module first. I'll put it in a test mode. And the way that you actually test the continuity from the module itself is you just hit the test button. And when I hit that, you're going to see it's going to light up the cues where I have good continuity. And you can see right there I have it at 1 and 7, 3 and 9, and 5 and 11. And if I had wired every cue up, you would see, and wired it correctly, you'd see this whole area would light up. But that's how you test continuity from the module itself. You simply hit the test button and it will show you that information. The great thing with the 18R2, get continuity from the remote itself. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that now. So I'm going to start the system up, and you'll see once it comes up and establishes communication with the 18M that it's synced with, it then gives me the continuity on that module, which is a great feature, because we all know when we do shows, and if we're doing them ahead of time and we're setting them up, sometimes these wires can work themselves loose, or you might have someone checking your setup out and they bump a wire, they trip on a wire, and this is a great way for you as the operator, before you get ready to fire your show, without having to go out to the module, because you might have it at a greater distance, or it might be in an area that it's not really accessible. You can actually test it from the remote to make sure everything is fine before you go to fire. So that is a great feature that they've added to the 18R2. So the next area I wanted to cover was the firing memory that you have with the 18R2 as well, which is that increased visibility you have as an operator. So to do that, I got to put the module actually in the arm position. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then once that is on, we'll go ahead and simulate that test. And did anyone notice what just happened when I turned that module back up? Do you see something on the remote? Look, I don't have continuity on Q1 anymore. I wonder what happened. Something worked its way loose. Oh, see, it went back on, but now I don't have it at 3. So obviously we got some issues here with these wires. I've been actually using them quite a bit to test little scenarios and stuff. So, but that's an example of the power that this has, because just then I saw that I lost continuity on 1 and I lost it on 3, and I went and changed the wires a bit. Now I have good continuity. So the next thing I'm going to simulate, like I said, is the memory feature regarding the firing of your cues. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in arm mode, and you can see it sending the signal to the firing module. And now both the remote and the module are in the arm position. And I'm not going to actually fire these igniters because I'm saving them to do some other future demonstrations. But I'm going to fire some of these other cues. Now if I had had everything wired up like I said properly, you'd see all this in green. But since I don't have anything existing on these are all blank. But I'm going to go ahead and start firing some of these manually. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Q2. And you can see it fired on the module. I'm going to hit Q4. You can see it hit on the module. I'm going to go ahead and do Q6. And there you can see it fired over there. And here is the power of the information regarding the memory feature for firing your show. As you can see, it shows me what cues have been fired, and those are illuminated in red. It shows me the last cue that was fired. That's always going to be blinking. And then it shows me the available cues in green. So that's a great way for you to keep track of your show, especially if you're manually firing it and say you have a cue sheet for instance, and you have them in a different sequence. So you know, right now my last cue was 6, and say in my cue sheet it says I got to go to 15. Well, now I know right in front of my face where my last cue was that I fired, so I could simply just go to 15 then, and then 16, and like I said, it tracks and keeps all that information. So this remote gives you a ton of power at your fingertips, and like I said, this is one of the other features that they've added to it to give you additional information as an operator. The last thing I'm going to show you real quick is I'm going to turn both these off. And there's another setting that's actually on the 18M that I haven't covered yet. And that is switching the module from firing consumer igniters to Ematch. And you might have noticed a minute ago when I fired those cues that the sustained current on the actual module was fairly quick. I have it right now in Ematch mode. So it's a really easy process to actually change that, and I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that for you. And how you change it from Ematch to consumer igniter, you simply hold down the sync button and then you hit channel up, and you see it said 2.0. If I want to get to Ematch mode, I hit the sync button and channel down, and you see 0.1. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in consumer igniter mode because that's what I have on there. I'm going to turn the remote back on, and I'm just going to demonstrate and show you the difference between firing with the Ematch, which you already saw, and then consumer igniter. And this is going to show you basically the amount of current or sustained current when you go to consumer igniter mode, because we all know Sometimes it takes longer for consumer igniters to fire, so it actually, when you put in that mode, it gives a sustained current to that for approximately 2 seconds. So now I'm going to go ahead and fire those cues again, and I want you to watch over here and you're going to see that. And you see both of them in the arm mode, so I'm going to go ahead and fire those cues. There's 2, you can see the amount of current, 4, 6, 14, 15, 16, 17. So that's the difference between setting the module at Ematch versus consumer igniter and demonstrating what that difference is. So that completes the video on the additional features and some of the functionality as it relates to the remote and the firing module. And stay tuned for more videos on the system. Like I said, the next one I'm going to do in the series is going to be all about the different types of firing modes you have with the Cobra firing system, and then some additional ones that you have with the 18R2. Thanks a lot for watching and your interest in my videos, and we'll talk to you soon.